Welcome. My name is, thank you for coming out on this Friday. And welcome to our program, an Actualized Q&A on collaboration with Carmen Argote and Cēdric Tai. And it is part of an ongoing in-process series of live actions that Carmen is conducting with 5 individual collaborators in the galleries and outside of the galleries around the current exhibition, I Won't Abandon You, I See You, We Are Safe. That's the current exhibition, and it examines a number of themes. And so this exhibition was organized by Amanda Sroka, Senior Curator at ICALA, who sadly could not be here and apologizes. She is not feeling well today. And Caroline Liu, Curatorial Assistant, who is here. And this exhibition will be on view until September 10th. So I'd like to we provided these bio sheets, which actually have an extra feature than our usual bio sheets that will be needed for this program. But I will read some of the bios very quickly. Cēdric Tai is an interdisciplinary artist who thinks through sculpture, talking, writing, performance, and experimental exhibitions. Their artworks offer insights into otherwise invisible structures through systematic, self-revealing interactive setups or transforming autism, ADHD, pathologizing into wonder, absurdity, meaningful challenges, and joyful interdependence. I have to insert that I love and support this. Carmen Argote is a multidisciplinary artist whose work often points to the body, class, and economic structures in relation to architecture and personal history. A lot of what you will see in the exhibition. Some themes to be explored today are the nature of collaboration and intimacy, reflections on play, processing, and consent. However, the spirit of experimentation is also in the room. And we would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered here today in the city of Los Angeles is the home and traditional land belonging to the Gabrielino Tongva Nation. Today we come with respect and gratitude for the Tongva people whom we recognize as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. I also want to read the recently adopted land acknowledgement by the County of Los Angeles that was developed over many months of collaboration with leaders from local tribes and adopted recently in November 2022. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kiz, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, and in no particular order, the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kiz Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention, at the bottom, it does say the same thing up here. We'd love to know your questions. This is a Q&A, so if you want to take like a minute or two to write a question, it can be about anything. We were going to talk about, I guess, intimacy, collaboration, things like that. But there's the little pencils and waters because I guess we're opening it up as if you're just one of the people in the Q&A.
They're going to be collected in a hat. So Maya's going to come around and collect your questions and bring those questions to us, towards us.
Do we want to move closer?
A little bit. There.
We're on wheels. Do we have any questions yet?
So nice to see some friends. Always feels really good. Thanks for being here.
Carmen, did you want to see my questions?
I don't want to see your questions, but I'll listen to your questions. I have questions too.
How many questions do you have? That looks like a lot of questions.
I don't have that many.
All right.
You're showing me the questions
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
I almost want you to ask me the questions. Okay.
These are really loaded questions. I'm a little shy, but okay.
Okay. But like, can I ask you a question first? Like, who goes first?
Either way, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What did it take for you to get here today, Cēdric?
So I do rely on a lot of people to get me around. So I've relied on you to help keep time when I was like, when do I pick you up so we can make it here in a good amount of time? So the collaboration and not being late helped get me here today. But do you mean it in some other way?
Maybe, can I ask you about, like, what did it take for you to get here today? Can I ask you about the different tools or methods that you use to get your day started?
Okay, so you mean like, do I have any rituals or something that maybe helps me literally? So across from my bed, I've got like a thing I printed out at the Octavia Butler Lab, which if you did not know, you get a free full color print that's 3 foot by 4 foot once a week at no charge. And I printed out all of these reminders to myself about when I wake up. Unlike other people, I wake up with like a low battery. So there's like a literal picture of a low battery and then like a series of steps I should go through. I think one of them says like, what are you grateful for? Another thing says like, what did you dream of last night? And I try to write down my dreams and connect with that and be a sponge with all the feelings I have. And then it gets into harder stuff like, what are you going to try to unmask and be your, I don't know, more authentic self, where if you're nervous, you would say you're nervous. Or if something doesn't work for you, you would say that. So sometimes I get through all those things, and sometimes I just roll out of bed and forget that I wrote that, even though it's right across from my bed. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
It does. Do we have some questions?
Thank you.
What is that word?
Are? Are used?
Uh-huh. Become a collaborator. Okay.
I know this person's handwriting.
What boundaries art audience do you? Boundaries with art and audience do you have? It's to winning the. What is that?
Which word?
That one.
The self?
Uh-huh. It's a good question.
Yeah, that's it.
Ooh.
You made a noise. Do you want to hold on to that?
Okay. Love to know how competition informs you. Okay.
I like this one, yeah.
What is it?
Here, hold on to that one. All right.
How did the title land in you?
I like that preposition.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Will you tell us collaborative process? How do you start accessing the
What was that word?
conscious, the real, the really?
I don't know what that is, but the last word is easy to tell. Okay.
What should we? That's a good question too. That's a very loaded question. I like that question. I think that's.
I mean, I'll give these back to you. These are our questions, but like, they'll be yours.
It's on the Taolin autism lesson.
Interesting. I don't know what this is. I'd have to look it up. Ooh. It just says, I don't have a question. All right. So my questions are categorized: intro questions, easy questions, meta questions, hard questions. Oh, and fun imaginative questions, and then a last question.
Okay. And also, thank you for your questions. I really like getting questions.
This is, in my mind, the studio practice that I have is like just in conversations. And I really do love questions. Like, to me, this is my gift to Carmen, is the material of questions that you can then use however you like in your show. Oh, that's interesting. I was going to ask you that, actually.
Let me see this one. Do you both? Or what is this one? Actualized.
Actualizing. Is there any other one?
A little yourself, others, bit on who you create work for and the spaces you put art yourself in and how it. No. Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to start?
Yes, please start.
Okay. So no one asked these questions, but I've got the answers to the questions that I'm surprised no one asked. Those answers are, yes, the eggs are from my chickens, named Agnes Martin, Nikki de Sanfal, Mike Kelly, Carrie Mae Weems, Lee Lozano, Adrian Piper, Noah Purifoy, and Carrie Upson, aka Guard Chicken. Some of the names actually came from Veronique d'Entremont, and then you adopted these chickens, and then you named the other chickens. Did I cover all the chickens? If you need to see them, these are all their names. I wrote them down from
Agnes,
the eggs.
Nikki, Mike Kelly, Carrie Mae Weems, Lee Lozano, Adrian Piper, Noah Purifoy, Carrie Upson. I know I lost Caddy Noland and Paul McCarthy. So
Oh yeah, those two have passed. Another answer to, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. And another answer is the Gynecological Book Club.
Okay.
That was just the answer to someone's question. And then another answer, the last answer I've got, it says, it's ongoing. All right.
Can I ask you about what you carry with you every day?
I usually carry that box with me every day, and it has a lot of different notes that I take. One of the notes, I'll just show this. It's kind of intense, but it's actually very simple. The entire bottom half are all the things that I really enjoy or give me energy. And then when I do things, I fill the bubble in. It's like a progress chart. And then at the top is a quadrant that instead of prioritizing things, it helps me relax because it explains why I don't get certain things done. So either it's really not fun and a chore and difficult, or on the other side, it's kind of energizing and fun. And then some things are way more complex, and then some stuff is way easier. So
How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're performing, or are you feeling
totally,
grand?
I totally
Okay.
feel awkward.
Okay.
This is as awful as I kind of thought it might be if I didn't prepare too much or too little.
Maybe why don't you face me?
Okay,
Get close. Get close.
okay.
Okay. Okay.
Can I hold your hand?
Yes.
Okay,
Hold this one
all right,
because I need this one.
all right. Why are they laughing?
Sometimes people laugh.
I mean, I know the
'Cause they're
laugh, so they are
feeling.
comforting. Normally this would help, but being seen breathing is so weird.
You look great.
I'm sure I look great. This still feels so weird.
What made you say yes to my invitation to be a collaborator in the show?
Oh, I love being invited. I think everyone loves being invited to stuff. Even if you don't end up going, it's like, oh, I'm so glad that someone's thinking of me, and I'm going to turn them down and enjoy doing my own thing.
Was it the letter though?
Oh no, that letter was really intense. You wrote a very long letter that is now on exhibit, and then I took a photo of it and made it the part of the advertisement for this event. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that the letter did more than you wanting to collaborate with me. And I also knew that whatever we would do, I would get to play with the materials you get to play with, because I normally have a lot of questions about what you're using.
Okay, ask me some tough questions.
Oh, okay. From the intro, ideally, how would you like this Q&A to go? And maybe is there anything you'd like to end on?
I would like to not perform. That's my idea of how I want it to go. I want to be present here
Okay.
and calm and think about this as part of art making. Because art making is a conversation.
Do you remember any of your things that you wrote and the list of do not want, ideals, yes? I think one said soft no. I was going to bring it, I didn't, but
That list?
yeah,
The list of consents?
yeah. No, we made a thing about this event, during the Q&A. What's your ideal?
Oh, I think my idea, this idea of being brave is to not conceal the soft spot, to feel whatever I feel, and these are my safety net,
Oh, okay.
and also to improvise, to be close to you and to be close to the audience.
Are you just going to roll into the audience right now?
I didn't know I was going to have wheels, so this is a new element, and I like improvising.
Yeah. I think it'd be easier for me to feel comfortable if I was standing or moving, but I can work with this.
Okay. Ask me another question.
Do you want easy, meta, hard?
I want hard.
Okay. Do you draw a line anywhere between art and life, or is anything available for being placed into an art gallery, including relationships? For example, I might be butchering the name, but Say and Linda Montano, they had the piece where they had the rope that was tying them together physically for a whole year. I have a note here that says Jennifer Moon and Lob broke up over a piece or during live radio or something. I don't know the context.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. What is the fear here?
I don't know. It's just one of the hard questions I have.
I don't want to exploit our relationship. That's something that's really weird. I think that what I'm interested in is this as a material for art making that's different in the way that I would usually make art. I'm usually engaged with like matter making, things like that. And the question of how can the art become more generous? How can the art become more generous? And I think that during the making of the work, the tools that I've gathered have allowed me to be more present in relationship. Part of my interest in being in relationship, specifically romantic relationship, is to be able to be in mutuality and like nurturing like the spiritual growth and using these tools and continuing to develop as a person, as a human being, in collaboration. So I feel like there's no disconnect for me. Like art and life are very connected for me. That being said, like that misbehave with integrity part is really important to me. Like I'm thinking of a book that from Mary's book club, hurt is not harm, harm is not hurt. Like where do I draw the line? Like, how can I approach it from like a place of like love, both for myself, like self-love, like that soft spot again.
And I also brought a blanket so I can swathe myself in it in case I get nervous. So this is like my, I guess, what the word is for safety net.
I mean, I have a question that's like sort of a follow-up. Like, what are some fears that come up for you with us being lovers, artists, and friends?
Whoa. I will say, can you repeat the question?
What are some fears that come up for you with us being lovers, artists, and friends?
So one of my biggest fears is the concept of overstaying my welcome. I remember anytime I would make a new friend, and I would always lose a lot of best friends, I had this awful reoccurring fear that I'm going to say or do something that's going to make someone realize that they would rather not hang out with me more than they do hang out with me. And it's just like a natural aspect of like people growing apart or something, but the fear there is that I cause it. So in the instance of being someone that's like a collaborator, and more than that, like I've always enjoyed being friends first and foremost with anyone I've been in a relationship with, but it doesn't stop the difficulty of trying to figure out like how do I talk with someone so that they understand if I disappear that it's not just because I'm like trying to get away from them, or if there's aspects of other fears that I have. Like I've told you I have a fear of curators. I don't know if there's any curators here, but I will actively avoid you if I know that you're a curator. And I worry that someone's idea of my fears would become like a project. So that's a fear of mine, that like if I'm not feeling like I can tackle something, it's going to be like thrust upon me. So sometimes I enjoy personally seeing people's questions beforehand. I don't think in this instance there was anything we could do to prepare for this. I also don't know why I was unprepared for that question. That's very straightforward. But I knew you were going to ask about fear at some point. I don't think I was ready for all the labels that came before it.
Ah, yeah.
But I love all those labels. They're accurate.
But it's interesting with this idea of like, who's saying that in terms of overstaying your welcome? Who's that
It's
voice?
me. That would be my sense of like, the reason why there's tension, the reason why there's like a withholding of like telling all the different things that one could say in order to like communicate better or something.
It seems like a protector to me. Do you think it's a protector?
So just for some context, protector, is that from internal family systems?
Protector, I don't know, it's from the art.
Like your actual artwork, there's something called protectors.
The protectors.
Okay.
The protectors are like patterns, behaviors, sometimes shoulds that appear that protect our innermost, the soft spot. What like my soft spot the other day was Velveeta cheese being cut and then me touching it. But because that's a very specific thing to say, like I'm scared that I'm going to overstay my welcome. Like, who talks to you that way?
I actually thought that was a very gentle way of just saying like what happens with entropy and time. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like it's definitely a fear of mine, but I don't know if it's that easy to just like say where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I have a meta question for you.
Okay.
Based on EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, can you give me a negative statement that you might believe about this Q&A?
The worst part, I like this question. Just what is the worst part? What is the worst belief?
Yes.
Right?
And then you're
about
gonna
this
say-
Q&A.
Yeah.
The worst belief about this Q&A is that somehow I will cause harm. And then that's usually followed by, what would you like to believe?
Yeah.
What I would like to believe is that by engaging in this very like intimate conversation with you in public, that somehow the creative process, our creative process, that maybe not, it's not the same, but it's in a collective unconscious, will be shared with the creative process of everybody else, that somehow will form connections through the art.
And you've said before, like we did a tour of this a couple hours ago, and you kind of ended it with saying two things. One was, how can the art be more generous? And so I was going to ask what you mean by that. And the second thing you said was that you hope this exhibition shows us as collaborators using our own using tools for our own mutual well-being and to become more generative. What could that entail, or what's like one question that you think all artists who live and work in LA should ask themselves?
Going back to the first one, what does it mean? How can the art be more generous?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, you do all this work. You can call it like healing, but what really it is, it's like you do all this work to like get to know your fears and to try to befriend your fears and to get to know yourself with your fears. And then what? And then what? What comes next? But like not in this like next, but it's a question of, okay, so then you have these tools, how do you use them? Well, you use them in relationship with others. What's the point if you're just going to have them within yourself? And so then the artwork poses this question, well, how can the artwork become more generous? Well, it's like, well, it's in relationship that the artwork can become more generous. But it's like, who do I work with? Well, it's with people who I'm already close to. And how can I get closer? Like, how can I work with developing intimacy with, people who I'm already close to, like with my mother, with my friend Mary McGuire, with Cēdric, with Young, like with Daniela. How can I really go beyond the superficial? And how can I use these tools? And then maybe you share the tools that you've learned along your journey, and then maybe we'll kind of be able to get unstuck. Like, I love the way that you saw my protectors the other day if I could share this. Can I share this a little bit? Is it okay?
Share, because I don't remember, but let's see where it goes.
So I think we were having a conversation about, I was feeling sad because house stuff or whatever. And I said, why are you judging me? And you said, well, you're pulling away or you're distancing. And I was like, wait, when did I distance? And you said, when you said, why are you judging me? And it's like in those moments that I'm like, oh, that's a protector. That's like me being like, stop. Protecting like that inner soft core of myself. And then the work that, the art has helped me do steps in, and then I can kind of go in and untie that knot or that place that needs healing. And I know that, although I know that you're available to help me process, doing that work for myself is so interesting, but knowing that you're holding that space is great. And then being able to be like, let me work it out with my therapist. This is going to be great. I now, can use this knowledge of this recognition of this protector to help get me unstuck so that I can recognize these patterns. A lot of the work in the show has to do with changing patterns, with deconstructing narratives, with being able to be in touch with the feelings that are guarding in many, the soft spot of what I would call, I don't know, is it authenticity? We were talking about that the other day. I don't know if it's authenticity, but I know it's like my innermost being, unmasked and present. I forgot the other parts of the question, but.
I mean, you kind of answered it because when you were describing what are these tools for our own mutual well-being, it sounds like you're describing each of us actually has our own tools, and then we kind of get to know each other and share. Mm-hmm. And then you're also describing something about what does that mutual well-being mean?
Yeah.
The only other part, which was optional, was, do you think that there's anything that artists who live and work in LA should ask themselves?
Can I ask you why you asked that question?
I like ending things on a question rather than something definitive. So it seems like if you leave something open-ended that's also for other people, it's kind of way of how you might navigate something, or the way that you might be interested in how other people navigate it.
But I still have more questions.
You can ask those questions too. But no, I do still want to know, maybe we'll come back to that question.
Okay, can we come back to that question? Because
yeah.
I actually don't understand that question that well.
Okay.
So maybe you can help me understand that question, but.
Sure.
Can I ask you something about a recent conversation we had about being almost there?
Can you give me a little bit more context?
I think you were talking about how you feel sometimes that you're almost there. You're almost this, or you're almost that.
Do you mean when I was describing the fun part of art for me, where it's you almost didn't make it? Is that one of the contexts?
No, I think it was a different context, but I was wondering what you meant by that, because I was kind of agreeing with it, and then I was like, wait, I don't know what I'm agreeing with. because it like switched up on me, or I felt like it was switching up on me.
You're totally going to have to give me more context in this.
Like
Do you remember what you were thinking in terms of?
I remember that when you said that you were almost there like as like a painter, or you were almost there as a this or as a that, and you were like sort of like labeling yourself as being almost there, and I was like, I don't understand, like, what did you mean by that?
I might have to work backwards from this.
Okay.
So when I went to school at the Glasgow School of Art, there was someone I invited over to be a visiting artist, and they told me, oh, I can see that you really do have a dilemma. You do like a lot of different types of art, like say Douglas Gordon, and then you also paint. But I don't know if I should really talk with you about painting because I can tell you're like not a real painter. And then I remember thinking, before we had that conversation, oh, what if I do that thing that happens in grad school where you like go in and then like someone's really mean and then you never do that type of art ever again. And for me, it was like painting. But it's also still true. Like I came to Los Angeles and I went, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is make abstract large paintings in LA. Because to me, that's just like a strange, different thing than it was when I was making paintings in Detroit. But I don't entirely know what the almost there was about then.
Okay. It felt like something hurtful, that's why I was asking. But that's why I was asking. I have another question. Do you have a question?
I do, but I feel like I want to give you the opportunity to ask me questions because you're very excited about this.
Okay. Can you share your thoughts about consequences within intimacy, specifically around consent?
Consequences around intimacy. If I take that on its most basic level, there just are consequences if you don't have a conversation about consent? Is that what you mean?
Or I guess like consequences are usually, at least the way that I had understood them, were like sort of like negatively leaning, but actually consequences are such a huge part of the learning process. And I was wondering if you could speak to the learning process around consent in relationship, specifically like within all relationships really, but intimate relationships.
Sure. I think in all relationships, there should be a constant learning of consent in the same way that we should be constantly looking at like misogyny in our culture, or like there's something that said like, I don't know if it was patriarchy or something in your text. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's great. Of all the different things that you mentioned during the walkthrough, you didn't really mention patriarchy. But when I think about some of the things that you're describing, the relationships are about power imbalances. And a lot of times people just in general kind of gloss over power imbalances. So I have conversations with people often about how if you just look back 10 years ago at a lot of art schools, the way that some people talk about sleeping with their students is almost as if they're describing a side benefit of teaching. So it's not only not a problem, but it's like an extra bonus thing.
Getting away with it
and then,
in this creepy way.
I was also thinking about how interesting it was. I had a friend who there was like a sexual battery case, and in the process of helping them, I noticed how difficult it is for friends to show up for each other. And even when people claim to be in community with each other, there's almost like a silencing that happens, which then to me means if you actively practice talking about not just like when things go wrong, but consent. You know that I personally think consent's really sexy.
Yeah.
It's like you can begin with things like, can I try this?
I feel like you're teaching me that consent is really sexy.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And I feel like really grateful to you for also like not just you teaching me, but in relationship with you, I'm learning. Like, not just like, oh, should, but that actually it's also a form of self-love. And I find that to be really healing.
And I also consider it a boundary.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we won't do anything with each other if there is not a conversation, if there's not consent, if there's not practice around consent, if there's not a certain positive attitude around consent.
Yeah.
Like all of those things are not even ideals. They are like the bare minimum.
Yeah, and I think as someone who grew up with very little boundaries, or like no boundaries, I feel like it is in relationship using these tools that, you know, both the art, but, you know, the writers and the philosophers and all these people that have been kind of therapists, part of my, you know, like life now and stuff, like have really been, like, it's just kind of like, I see where like all of these things are touching, and they touch at the point of like self-love, and that's been really interesting to me, especially in relationship.
And I just want to also mention that I do have friends who I'm realizing there's a connection now between the fact that I would tell them if they want to start healing in certain ways, I tell them, well, you know how important self-love is. Like, do you have a practice of self-compassion? And they were like, oh, that's BS. And then I was also then talking with them about things like boundaries. And then they also said, well, that's also like, why would you want to interrupt sex or something with like a question? And I was like, oh, that's so strange that I'm realizing now that like, I don't know if there is a connection between the two, but the idea of not questioning those things or having a kind of, not incredulousness, but suspicion of things that I think are very important. Anyways, that was a tangent.
Okay, I'm ready for your questions.
Oh, okay. I mean, do you still want me to read them? Well, how do you want to? There's a lot of questions.
Well, read the ones that you want to ask.
All of them were questions I wanted to
need to move
ask.
a little bit, yes. Okay, well, ask me some questions.
All right. Should we not talk about any of the following in public? Therapy, sex, parents, unspoken fears, secrets, or money?
I think we can talk about all of them.
Okay, go. Where are you going?
Am I flight? Is this flight?
I think you just reenacted like the fight-flight, but I could also be doing the fawning.
Okay. Okay, another question. Next question.
Under easy questions, I just wrote, is this all right? And in brackets, I wrote, checking in and consent. So, how are you doing? Do we need a stretch? Does anyone need a drink of water?
I think I need a drink of water.
Yeah, I could use a drink of water.
Yes.
That was just a photo of me getting my first ever mani-pedi to match the artwork in Carmen's show.
So good. Okay, next question.
Did you want to talk about any of the photos that are playing on loop?
No.
Cool. Can you describe what bodily feelings or sensations you're experiencing right now?
I'm scared, but it feels good. And I feel calm too.
How about in the body, like shoulders, neck?
Oh, you know what? Like, yeah,
How do you feel in your seat?
my shoulders are tight. Usually, like, my stomach feels numb. I feel okay. A little bit like, little flighty.
What, if anything, do you wish you were not in charge of?
Money. I don't like thinking about money.
So as long as someone else thinks about it, then it's fine?
Yeah, but I've learned that that doesn't work.
Say more.
I've learned, talking about money, I've learned that if I just run away from thinking about money, and let someone else handle money, then I'm negating my own agency. And not only that, but I'm not looking at the ways that I am supporting myself. That fear creates a lack of agency where then it becomes like someone else is going to take care of this for me, or someone else is going to do this. I want someone to take care of me, and that's just a regression, and that's not, I don't want to be there again. I think that's something that I learned about self-neglect. And it's thinking about it in a different way, like without like this fear. Where did that fear come from? Where did the fear of being able to support myself come from? It comes from a feeling of being not enough, or being undeserving, or being, like I feel it like now, like in my shoulders here going down. And I actually, I know when I'm getting a freeze response, because usually somatically it goes down in my arms, and that's the first part of my body that goes into freeze mode.
So you had a negative statement, or whatever that cognition term is for EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
On a scale between 1 and 7, how true does it feel that you don't want to do hurt?
It's not too high, because it's probably, I feel safe enough with you, so it's maybe and with myself with you, so 3. It's not a trigger.
And then on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm trying to remember what do you want to believe about the Q&A?
5.
And can you repeat again what it was, of what you want to believe about the Q&A?
I think that somehow that we get to engage in art making, and that we have friends, witnesses, people engaging the creative art making process with us, and that it's generative.
And so you're at a 5.
Yeah.
You're 50%.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you want to do with these questions that we have?
I want to kind of play with them, and I want to post them as part of the show.
Okay. Did you want to read or answer any of them at all?
No.
So you just are going to post them up, right? On the one wall where you're like, this doesn't have enough.
Well, I figured that we'd play with them, and then we'd post them up.
Oh, what do you mean play with them?
I don't know.
Make them into origami?
No,
I'd imagine you'd want to be able to read them.
I do want to be able to read them, but I don't know if that's weird to post the questions without asking.
Oh, great idea. What if we ask people if they see one of theirs, if we can post it? And otherwise they can take it back would that work? Or what are you thinking?
I don't know.
I mean, that just means that if the question gets put into your art exhibition, someone had the opportunity to revoke that access.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of interesting. We can put it up, and then if you don't want it, you can take it back. You could take your question back.
Okay.
Like gifts.
Do you want to go on about that? That sounded loaded.
That's so loaded. That's a 10.
Let's get into it. I'll just take out the gift that you gave me earlier, just to give another visual aid.
Well, it's part of the gift.
Carmen was asking if I'd be willing to wear this shirt for
I thought it was a good shirt.
And I'm, unfortunately for Carmen, not wearing the shirt, but I did want to bring it.
It says, sad music for horny people.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thought it was a good shirt.
It's a great shirt.
But then I said, okay, so will you accept the gift? And you're like, no.
Okay, and you were like, then that
Okay,
still
yeah.
works. Yeah, you're gonna have to go into it a little more.
Okay, now I'm feeling it in my shoulders and everything. I'm just getting like really, like, oh my God.
Because you know you don't have to do this, right? Like we could literally ask other questions. There's way more fun questions.
Okay, yeah, ask another question.
Okay.
It's too much.
From the fun imaginative questions, this one's interactive for you. So I'm going to give you my sketchbook and this thing of colored pens. And you were mentioning while we were in the tour of your exhibition that, well, I'll just give a little bit more unnecessary context. So one of the things that I notice about your art practice is that usually you work every single day. And I was like, you should have a weekend. There should be a day you don't do art. And you're like, it's fine. And then when you purchased a new house, it was not finished, and it meant that you didn't have a studio.
So I recently purchased a house in Boyle Heights. It's under construction.
Which meant that in a sad way, but the trickster in my mind thought, oh look, all the weekends just came together all at once, the weekends I thought you should be bestowed with in which you can't make work. And they happened, and then you were able to make work again at the ICA as a studio, but in the interim, it was like all those weekends happened all at once, for better or for worse.
I love how Anne Elgood put it. I'm an uninvited resident. I have an uninvited residency in the kitchen. And and yeah, it's true. I usually live with the work, so it incubates in my, like, where I live, in my bedroom. It just kind of stays, and I'm working on it all the time. And for the past, I don't know, like several months, I've been sleeping, you know, like in my backyard in a tent, which is like not bad. Sometimes, you know, with friends or around the neighborhood. But I really miss having my art around me. I miss like that process because I haven't been able to engage with it. But it's really, what's been really nice is in the collaborations, been able to, like, I feel like I'm tending to the show, and in tending to the show, kind of like I tend to the chickens, getting some of that making, but in a new way, like learning what that could be, like on with a different kind of touch.
So this was just a very long-winded way of starting off with knowing how you can immerse yourself in your materials. What would your ideal studio look like? And would you like to draw out some of what that might look like?
It looks like my bedroom. It looks like my home. It looks like.
But let's pretend you have no, you have no, like, what's the word for it? There's no space, time, or other types of constraints. We're going for ideal. So yes, this can be your bedroom, but what if it's a bedroom where there's like 10 beds and it's like 1 acre?
I mean, I would fill every room. Like, give me any space. Like, and it's not even a space. It's like just making. But not like just to make, like. I like open spaces. I'm just going to take notes. You like open spaces. Is it some part of this outdoors? Does any part of it have grass? Yeah.
So is it still a bedroom still?
No, I mean, it can be like a whole house. It's like everything.
And when you say you'll fill a whole house, would you have like a clean space as opposed to an immersive
I don't know.
space?
I don't understand clean spaces. There's no clean spaces. I don't understand this idea of a clean room. I don't get it.
I mean, wouldn't the gallery be the clean room of your studio practice?
I just don't get it.
Okay, so it's open. Is this something that's like collapsible in space? Like it only takes as much room as you want, and then it can get smaller if you don't want to take up that much space? Or is it just...
No, I love having space.
So this could be like 4 warehouses.
Like, it would be amazing. Like, okay, my ideal studio, like
Yeah.
this architecture, like, yes, like take it over, you know, just like, yeah.
And then,
So maybe,
yeah.
I mean, I think like, maybe like this is also helping me think bigger. Like, you know, like, But like, it's also outside, it's inside, interior, you know.
And you were just
Like-
saying how much you love also
like-
the, like when people come into the ICA, you like
Like,
the front area and people hanging
I
out.
would love to have my bed here. Like, I mean, like I've had this conversation with Amanda. I was like, I'd love to have my bed here, and every single piece that I've made in the last 3 years here, I've liked to, like, you know, like really just like have like everything. But then, you know, it wouldn't be readable.
So what if you had like little roped off areas where you let someone like Mary McGuire come in and curate? They can use anything they want in that little space, but they would be the one tidying up, framing. It's still temporary.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like what we did. But then again, it was like, then like, you know, like it was like a conversation with like me and Amanda. It's like, what's readable? There's too many books. It's like, pfft, you know? And I'm like, it's just going to get filled up. So that's why I wanted to get filled up with our questions. I wanted it to get filled up with like whatever happens. Okay. I think how are you guys doing? Are you guys tired? Yeah.
I'm going to take that as a yes. If
Yeah.
it's not a half second of no,
Yeah.
then it's
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
My other questions are just funny. It's like, would you like to see my best impression of you as performed in front of everyone?
Yes, I'd love to see.
I don't know if there's enough time. That's the problem. It was like, you mentioned that a lot of things are integrated into three things, like spiritual, the earth, and then conscious. If there are three things and the ICA is one of them, what are the other two things?
If there are three things and the ICA is one of them?
Yes.
Well, there's the neighborhood and the people.
I had another hard question that says, there are things that you don't mention to everyone during a personally led tour, but you did mention them to me earlier.
Yes.
Are there stories that you don't mind mentioning? I've given them each a word. Uninvited, which you just told that one. Infested. Estes. Leaking. Developers.
Ooh. You can talk about any of them. It's fine.
I mean, it's up to you if you want to. I'm just saying that those were ways that I wouldn't tell your stories, but are there any that you'd be willing to share?
What's was before leaking?
It's the last name.
Where?
Estes?
Oh, Estes.
Estes.
The Clarissa Pinkola Estes writer.
Yes.
I love Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I don't know if you know this writer, but she's a Jungian analyst, and she, you know, talks about like the self as all parts, like she goes into storytelling, and the characters within a story are all integrated parts of the self. And I feel like it's been so interesting to kind of go on my walking, because I have a walking practice, usually 2 or 3 hours a day, and I listen to these books that she writes, and I feel like I walk with her very often. I walk with like a lot of the writers that are sort of, you know, like that have like and stuff in the work. So, like, I listen to the Red Book while walking. Like a lot of like, I don't know, like, especially like a lot of like psychology and also like Octavia Butler's books I've been listening to in audiobook form. But okay, I think just the impression of me, and I think we're done, because I want to see that, and I'm tired too.
Okay, so this is my impression of you. We are going to probably wrap this up because it's 6:15.
Oh wow.
And I know we were going to like do our. I'm sorry. I know we were going to like maybe end with like comparing our schedules like in real time, but like the chickens are so hungry right now. I'm worried that little cart. I think it's time. I think we need to wrap it up.
I think so too. Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.